The mahogany boardroom felt like a trap the moment I sat down. 12 pairs of eyes were already watching me. James at the head of the table where our father usually sat, Amanda beside him with her hands folded like she was about to deliver good news. The rest of them lined up like a jury that had already made its decision. I opened my laptop. The presentation was still there. 6 months of research into digital transformation for Harrison Enterprises. A complete roadmap for modernizing our family's construction empire. I'd spend the morning refining it. I'd spent weeks before that perfecting it. None of it would matter. As I was saying, James continued, his voice carrying that practiced tone of authority he'd been rehearsing since our father stopped showing up to these meetings. The company needs clear direction. We can't afford distractions. His eyes flickered to me. That was the signal. Tori's ideas about digital integration are too radical, Amanda said, already reaching for her water glass like the discussion was over. We're a construction company, not a tech startup. I didn't respond. Responding never helped. My father cleared his throat. He was the only one who still looked uncomfortable with this. That made it worse somehow. Perhaps we should put it to a vote, he said, his voice carrying the disappointment he'd perfected over 32 years. All in favor of removing Victoria from her position as Chief Strategy Officer. The hands rose like a choreographed piece. James smirking slightly. Amanda not quite meeting my eyes. Uncle Robert, who'd taught me to read blueprints when I was 10. Aunt Patricia, who'd always said I was too much like my mother, brilliant but difficult. Even Cousin Thomas, who I'd helped get his first project management role, raised his hand after a moment's hesitation. It's unanimous, my father announced, though he hadn't voted himself. He never did. He preferred to let others do the dirty work. Don't worry, little sister, James said, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. We'll make sure your shares are properly managed. You clearly aren't equipped to handle the responsibility. I closed my laptop slowly, deliberately. You'll need to clear out your office by the end of the day, Amanda added. We have a reputation to maintain. A reputation. That's what they were protecting. Not the billion-dollar opportunities emerging in digital construction. Not the competitors going digital while Harrison Enterprises stayed frozen in the 1990s. Not the future they couldn't see. Of course, I said, gathering my things. I wouldn't want to damage the family name. This is for the best, Victoria, my father said, finally meeting my eyes. You're too much of a dreamer. Construction is about concrete and steel, not algorithms and apps. I stood smoothing my charcoal suit, the one I'd worn that morning to sign the papers in my briefcase. The documents that would make tomorrow's meeting very interesting. Just one question, I said, pausing at the door. Who's handling the Morgan development pitch tomorrow? James puffed up immediately. I am. $50 million contract. Biggest residential development deal in the city's history. Something you wouldn't understand, sister. It requires a traditional approach. Traditional, I repeated softly. Don't worry your pretty head about it, Amanda sneered. Focus on finding a nice corporate job somewhere. Something with fewer responsibilities. The silence that followed me out of the boardroom was almost as satisfying as what tomorrow would bring. Almost. My former office looked smaller when I returned for the last time. The view was the same. The city sprawled below, cranes dotting the skyline like mechanical giants, each one representing a piece of the empire my grandfather had built, the empire my father had expanded, the empire my siblings thought they were protecting from modern ideas. My phone buzzed. Marcus, my CFO, confirming everything. Everything set for tomorrow. The papers are filed. Summit Industries is officially on record as Morgan's new parent company. I smiled, running my finger along the spine of my grandfather's old leather journal. The only thing I was taking from this office. He'd written something on the first page years ago. Something I'd read 1,000 times. The future belongs to those who can see it coming. My family was so busy protecting the past, they never saw the future walking right past them. The penthouse office was alive when I arrived the next morning. The wall of screens displayed real-time data from construction sites worldwide. Sites my family didn't know I controlled. The morning sun caught the edge of the smart glass windows, turning the city below into something almost unreal. "The Morgan team is ready," Michael said, my assistant appearing with coffee and a knowing look. "And James just arrived at Morgan's offices for what he thinks is the pitch meeting." "How long before they realize?" I asked. "Conference room's been moved. They're heading there now. No idea who's actually running it." I nodded, taking in the screens, the data streaming across them, the empire built in the spaces where my family thought I was failing. The Morgan Building's conference room was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, including several Harrison Enterprises construction sites. Sites that would soon be under new management. The smart glass walls were frosted now, creating a private cocoon. When the time was right, one touch would change everything. James arrived first, strutting in with his presentation folder. Amanda followed with the scale models they still use for pitches, so old school, so predictable. My father entered last, looking imperial in his custom suit. They arranged themselves around the table, not noticing the cameras discreetly recording everything. "Morgan's running late?" Amanda asked, checking her watch. I pressed the button that cleared the smart glass, revealing my presence. The look on their faces was priceless. James dropped his folder. Amanda's perfect posture crumbled. My father just stared. "What are you doing here?" James demanded. "This is a private meeting." "Is it?" I opened my laptop, connecting it to the room's display system. "Let's talk about privacy. About private companies, private acquisitions, and private transformations." The screens came to life. Summit Industries' portfolio blazed across them. Billions in assets. Hundreds of construction sites. Complete ownership of Morgan Development Group. My father's voice was barely a whisper. "What is this?" I stood slowly. "This is the future you were too busy mocking to notice. Summit Industries has acquired Morgan Development Group for an undisclosed sum." The announcement came across every industry feed within hours. But that was just the beginning. The conference room erupted. James shouting about family loyalty and legal action. Amanda with actual tears streaming down her face. My father staring at the numbers on the screen, watching billions in assets shift before his eyes. I watched calmly as my executive team entered, taking their seats around the table. They nodded to me respectfully. "Thank you for coming," I said, addressing the room. "Today's meeting isn't about a pitch. It's about an announcement. Summit Industries is launching the largest digital transformation initiative in construction history, starting with all current Harrison Enterprises contracts." "You can't take our contracts," James finally managed, his voice hoarse. "Actually, I can. Most of your clients have already agreed to transfer their projects to Summit. They prefer our modern approach. Our real-time monitoring, our cost-saving technologies. All the things you said would never work in construction." Amanda whispered something I didn't quite hear. Probably a prayer. "This will destroy the company," she said finally. "No," I corrected. "This will force it to evolve. You have two choices. Either adapt to the digital age, partner with Summit Industries, and learn how modern construction actually works, or become obsolete." The days that followed unfolded exactly as I'd planned. The news spread through the industry like a current. Client after client announcing their switch to Summit Industries. Stock analysts praising our innovative approach. Industry publications running headlines about the future of construction arriving overnight. And the chaos at Harrison Enterprises was swift and devastating. My office wall displayed everything in real time. Stock prices dropping steadily. News feeds updating by the hour. My father's empire crumbling not because of incompetence, but because it had refused to evolve. Michael kept me updated on every development. Peterson Construction just announced the acquisition, he said, watching the screens. Stock just dropped another 8%. I nodded. Peterson was their biggest supplier. They didn't know yet, but Advanced Materials Tech and Global Logistics Partners were already being folded into Summit's vertical integration strategy. Their entire supply chain was about to become mine. Your father's in the lobby, Michael announced through the intercom. No appointment. I checked the security feed. My father stood in the lobby looking smaller than I remembered. No power suit today. No air of authority. Just an old man realizing the world had shifted beneath his feet. Send him up. The office fell silent as he entered. His eyes took in everything. The wall of screens showing real-time project data. The holographic building models. The teams of young engineers working on tablets instead of paper blueprints. This is quite an operation, he said finally. It's what I tried to show you 3 years ago when I first proposed digital integration, I replied, not offering him a seat. He nodded slowly. The board is meeting tomorrow. Emergency session. They're concerned. They should be, I said. Summit just acquired Peterson Construction. Their digital infrastructure integrates perfectly with ours. Peterson. His face went pale. But they're our biggest supplier. Were I corrected? Now they're part of Summit's vertical integration strategy, along with Advanced Materials Tech, Global Logistics Partners, and several other companies you depend on. You're systematically dismantling everything we built, he said quietly. No, father. I'm building something better. Something that should have included Harrison Enterprises if you'd all just listened. My phone buzzed. Another client announcing their switch to Summit. I watched his reaction, the realization spreading across his face like ice water. James resigned this morning, he said. Amanda's talking about selling her shares. Smart move, I replied. They'll be worth half as much by next week. He sank into a chair without waiting for invitation. What do you want, Victoria? Money. Power. Revenge. I turned to face him fully. I want what I've always wanted. To modernize construction. To bring this industry into the digital age. To build something meaningful. By destroying your family's legacy? I pulled up our latest project on the main screen. A revolutionary smart city development. This is legacy, father. Not clinging to outdated methods because that's how we've always done it. Not dismissing innovation because it's unfamiliar. Not voting out someone because their vision threatened your comfort. A notification popped up. Our stock had jumped another 12%. He stared at the numbers. You planned all this from the beginning, he said finally. No, I corrected. I planned to do it with you. You all chose to make me do it without you. He straightened his jacket, a nervous habit I'd never seen before. The board meets at 9 o'clock tomorrow. They're considering merger options, partnership possibilities. I smiled. You mean they're hoping Summit will absorb Harrison Enterprises and save them from becoming completely obsolete? Would you consider it? He asked carefully. I pulled up a document I'd had prepared for weeks. 2 conditions. First, complete digital transformation. No compromises. No traditional holdouts. Second, I met his eyes. I run it. All of it. No family votes. No board interference. No more dismissing ideas because they're different. The board won't like that, he said. The board doesn't have a choice, I replied. In 3 months, Summit will control 60% of the construction technology market. In 6 months, any company not using our platforms will be effectively locked out of major contracts. You can be part of that future or watch it happen from the sidelines. He stared at the document for a long moment. What happens to the family? He asked. That depends on them. Amanda's actually quite good at project management when she's not busy undermining me. James should probably explore other opportunities. And me? He asked quietly. You get to decide if you're ready to learn from your daughter. To admit that maybe, just maybe, the quiet one in the family meetings actually knew what she was talking about. He stood slowly, straightening his jacket. As he turned to leave, he paused at the door. Your grandfather, he said. He would have been proud. Grandfather left me his private journals, I revealed. He wrote about seeing the future of construction, about wanting to modernize. You were all too busy protecting his old methods to realize you were betraying his actual vision. The door closed softly behind him. I turned back to my screens, to the empire I'd built while they thought I was failing. The city below was already changing. Not because I'd destroyed anything, but because I'd built something better. A message popped up from my team. Morgan Project groundbreaking ceremony next week. Press wants to know if Harrison Enterprises will be mentioned in the announcements. I thought about family, about legacy, about the future my grandfather had actually dreamed of. I typed back. Tell them it's a story about evolution, about how sometimes you have to tear down the old foundation to build something stronger. Because success isn't just about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's creation. I picked up my grandfather's old journal, opening to his final entry. The page was worn from my reading it so many times over the years. The words were still clear. The future belongs to those brave enough to build it. I looked out over my city, over the cranes dotting the skyline, over the buildings bearing my company's logo, over the future that was finally fully mine. The family that voted me out would learn that lesson tomorrow. And every day after, as they watched their quiet disappointment reshape an entire industry. Not through cruelty, not through revenge, but through something far more powerful. Through vision, through courage, through the simple, unstoppable force of someone who'd finally been given nothing left to lose. The future belonged to me now. And I was just getting started.